I've got Mark Martin. He's the former Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. He's now the Dean of Regent University Law School. And Mr. Chief Justice, Your Honor, Dean, so glad you're here. Tell me about your feeling on this problem. What are the main problems with this independent counsel law?
Well, first of all, serious concerns of constitutionality were raised by the late Justice Scalia. And I think his warning about the damage that could be done to our republic, that we see that in the current situation.
Sure.
We see almost half of a term of a United States president being interfered with through this process. And so the predecessor to the current procedural regulation that Janet Reno issued in 1999 was an independent counsel provision in the Ethics in Government Act of 1978. So one of the key problems is we have a mere regulation. We have a one-word standard that determines whether a special counsel can be authorized.
What's the one word?
Warranted. Now, that is the one word that caused $25 million to be spent. And if we consider the parallel congressional investigations, 2 Senate committees and 1 House committee, $67 million. So we need immediate review of this law, this procedural regulation, to toughen up that standard.
Why do you think the Supreme Court validated it?
Well, there are strong practical reasons to have the ability, particularly when you have this type of conflict of interest. In fact, the Attorney General serves at the pleasure of the President. And so we're talking about an investigation of a president or a high-level official in the executive branch.
Well, do you think that we should have another special counsel like Lindsey Graham suggested to investigate the Justice Department?
Well, it's an interesting question because the process did not work well this time around. I do agree with Ken Starr that ultimately the rule of law was vindicated and the president was exonerated. There was absolutely no evidence of Russian collusion, despite what Adam Schiff may say. And also, we learned that there was no obstruction. And that was a ruling of both the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein.
Well, you know, the president said, I hope this never happens to another president, that he gets misused the way I have been. How can we, what should we do to change this thing?
You know, just imagine, as an aside, you decide to run for president, and all of a sudden your entire family, your own son, is exposed to an unfair investigation. It shouldn't be that way. We have so over-criminalized the American political system. And this should never happen again. And the president is absolutely correct. And we can make sure it doesn't happen again by appointing a blue ribbon commission. Attorney General Barr has the authority tomorrow to change this law. It is a procedural regulation of the Justice Department.
It's a procedural regulation? It's not something that Congress has set up?
It is not a statute. The independent counsel provision of the Ethics in Government Act expired by its own terms in 1999. At that point, Attorney General Janet Reno issued a regulation that has now been enforced for 20 years.
So it's merely a regulation put in by a former Attorney General?
That's exactly right.
I don't think any of the American people don't know that.
Well, they need to know that because Attorney General Barr could rescind the rule. He can toughen up the rule. 28 CFR 600.1. That's where the term warranted appears. We should have a much tougher basis, a much tougher standard for this. There should be substantial evidence to, number one, show that a crime has been committed and that a person of interest committed it.
Well, God bless you. Well, I appreciate this. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here because I didn't realize where that thing came from, but the damage that can be done is horrible. I'm so glad you're here with us. You're enjoying your stay at Regent, I hope.
I absolutely am. And if students want an education at a law school where the faculty really cares about the students, and they will have a great job and have a great chance passing the bar in any of the 50 states, they need to consider Regent Law School.